Good Sunday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage. In today's weather forecast, I will be tracking a significant severe weather outbreak across the central and southern plains today and tonight, followed by an ice storm and snowstorm going through this weekend into early next week with ice and snow amounts here across the Midwest and the Northeast. And then another big storm looms for next week with more rain, snow, and severe weather. We'll be talking about those details later on in this video. If you guys know, we're down to 3 days now until my 1 year of being on YouTube is on Wednesday, March 1st. So if you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button down below and also hit the subscribe button to get all of my daily weather forecast updates each and every morning at 9 a.m. Here, I cover North America, including Canada, the United States, and the tropics. So hit the subscribe button down below, everyone, and you get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. Looking out the door this morning, we have that strong negatively tilted trough moving across the Four Corners region, and eventually this will start to eject across the central and southern plains this afternoon and evening, and then that will continue to move across the Ohio Valley by the time we get into early on this week on Monday, February 27th to start the work week. But if you guys are with me on the video, don't forget to press the like button down below. It's the thumbs up button. It helps to get all of this weather information out to as many people as possible because we do have severe weather today, so we want to keep as many people safe as possible. So hit the like button down below. I definitely appreciate it. So looking here at the Storm Prediction Center's Day 1 categorical outlook, we actually do have still that level 4 or 5, that moderate risk for severe storms and significant severe weather today across western Oklahoma down into northwestern Texas, even with that enhanced risk extending up into southeastern Kansas and southwestern Missouri as well. And even that severe weather potential in general with that marginal risk actually extends as far east as western Illinois as we head through the day and night tonight. So looking at the individual risks and probabilities, the tornado probability is a 2 to 5% shading across the central southern plains here from southern southeastern Kansas getting into southwestern Missouri, and then farther south and west towards portions of southwestern Oklahoma and northwest Texas here, we have a small 10% hatched area for tornadoes where we could actually have a strong tornado or two early on this evening. But the much more intense severe weather will be relying on the damaging wind threat here going through the evening and overnight hours, as a line of thunderstorms will initiate very quickly early on this evening across the Texas Panhandle and western Oklahoma and propagate quickly to the east-northeast, producing potentially over 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts all the way up here into southeastern Kansas, southwestern Oklahoma, through much of Oklahoma here as well, and the panhandle of Texas, and then that lower-end threat for some large hail around quarter size as well. So let's time this out for you guys. We have the noon time frame here. All is quiet across the central and southern plains, just some warm air advection type of sprinkles and showers out ahead of the main system. You can see the cold pocket aloft back here to the west, just waiting to move across these areas with the warm, moist air, and that will start to fire off some thunderstorms right along that dry line and cold front by 5 o'clock late this afternoon, early this evening, across southwestern Kansas through the Oklahoma and Texas Panhandle. And these initial storms will be supercells, and they could be producing tornadoes and potentially even a strong tornado on the southern end of this line here, with the uninterrupted air on the southern side. But this will quickly explode into a linear line of storms from portions of southeastern Nebraska all the way southward through Kansas, central Oklahoma through the Oklahoma City metro area, and then down through portions of North Texas. Now again, with southward extent, these storms could be producing some damaging winds, large hail, and a couple of tornadoes, potentially a strong tornado still through the mid-evening hours. And then as this propagates farther east, this will start to bow out a little bit across Missouri, northwestern Arkansas, into eastern Oklahoma by 1 a.m., still producing some widespread damaging winds through portions of the Kansas City area, down through portions of Joplin, Missouri, Jefferson City, Springfield, Missouri, down toward the Fayetteville, Arkansas region, and then maybe some isolated stronger storms with some outflow boundaries as far south as the I-20 corridor into East Texas, near the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. We'll have to be watching as well. So looking at the setup with this, why we're seeing seeing the severe weather? Well, the dew points are going to be rising into the 50s and 60s out here across all of the central and southern plains. So we do have the moisture. We also have the very strong kinematics with the system. The mid-level jet is going to be screaming out of the west-southwest with that negatively tilted trough later on today, and a very robust low-level jet in the 850 millibar layer as well will promote some low-level shear for tornadoes later on this afternoon and early this evening, with the peak of that tornado threat before we start to see a forward propagating MCS or line of thunderstorms that does push from west to east across these areas. Again, your safe place for tornadoes, your best bet to stay safe is a storm shelter and basements. If not available, if you don't have a storm shelter or basement, find an interior room away from windows to stay safe. Again, if you receive a tornado warning at all, no matter if it's just a general tornado warning, a PDS tornado warning or not, take shelter immediately. Tornadoes are dangerous, and you don't want to go outside and see if you can find the tornado because they could be rain wrapped, especially within the line of storms through tonight. And again, these will be overnight tornadoes as well, so you will not see them coming. But as we go into Monday morning, this whole system will move up across Iowa here as a 979 millibar low, a very strong spiraling low pressure system. On the northern side, we'll have a little bit of a mix of freezing rain, sleet, and snow across central Wisconsin on up into northeastern Minnesota, but it's all heavy rain through the Chicagoland area, through Rockford, Illinois, down through Peoria here, and then as far south as the Paducah area by 6 a.m. on Monday. That will propagate farther to the east. We'll have more cold air to work with up here across the Great Lakes into eastern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, through central Michigan for a icy snow mix going through midday on Monday around noon time frame. It's all rain through Ohio, getting down through the Tennessee Valley, and then that will push farther to the east by 9 o'clock on Monday, and this will be the start of our snowstorm across the Northeast. Places like New York City, Long Island, getting up here through Albany, New York, places like Pennsylvania, and then farther north and west through the UP of Michigan. We'll see some snow bands set up here by Monday evening, and we'll also have a severe weather side on Monday. The Storm Prediction Center has a marginal to slight risk for severe weather centered on eastern portions of Illinois, southern portions of Indiana, and southwestern Ohio. We do have to watch out for at least a 2% shading for tornadoes and at least a low-end probability for 60-mile-per-hour winds. The hail threat's going to be less than 5% here. Not really talking about a hail threat on Monday because the energy or the instability, or what we call CAPE, convective available potential energy, will not be very high on Monday. So we're only talking about mainly a lower end threat for tornadoes and damaging winds. But looking more at the cold side of the system, we're going to be pulling in at least some marginally cold air here in the 850 millibar layer. And why we look at this is because you can see an overrunning event with this system. We have all the warmer air aloft moving northward, and this is going to set up some trouble for a freezing rain setup. You have the snowflakes falling out of the cloud itself, but then that deep warm layer aloft in the mid levels of the atmosphere will melt those snowflakes to raindrops, and then they will fall all the way to the surface, but the surface temperatures are actually at or below freezing. So we'll see those rain droplets refreeze on contact, and you can see that turn into ice here on driveways, sidewalks, your windshields here, and everything in between, and even those power lines out there. So that is a dangerous setup. But the snow setup as well, with the temperatures cooling here overnight, Monday night into the northeast, we're going to see more snowflakes from cloud all the way to the surface because all of that air is cold enough to support snow from the cloud all the way to the ground. So that's why we see more of a snow setup across the northeast. But looking at that ice setup, fairly significant ice storm here from Monday the 27th through Wednesday the 1st here of March. Fairly decent ice storm, maybe a little farther north than our last ice storm, but still some decent totals up here, possibly closing in on a 1/4 inch of ice across northern Wisconsin, central Michigan, into central portions of Pennsylvania here. So definitely want to be on high alert for that. But also the snowfall potential as well. We could see several areas up here into northern Wisconsin, northeastern Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, even central and northern Michigan here could be seeing at least up to 4 to 6 inches worth of snow, and then some heavy amounts of cross portions of central New York State, eastern Pennsylvania, possibly as far south as northern New Jersey. And again, that I-95 corridor where we haven't seen much snow this year. Could be getting a maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow by the time we get towards the middle of next week. So don't put those shovels away or snow blowers yet. We're going to be needing them across the upper Mississippi Valley here in towards the Midwest and even the Northeast as we go through that midweek time frame. The system will also be producing lots of liquid precipitation. The rainfall out there from today into tomorrow, we're going to be seeing that centered across central Iowa down toward the Kansas City region. So Des Moines to Kansas City, we could see about 2 to 3 inches of rain, but even some heavier amounts to an inch of rain does extend farther south toward the Oklahoma City and Wichita areas here as well. That does promote the threat for flash flooding as well. We have a marginal risk for flash flooding here across parts of the lower Midwest down through the Central Plains here into eastern Kansas during today into tomorrow morning time frame, and then all that heavier rain spreads up to the Northeast on Monday into Tuesday with 1 inch of rainfall amounts across portions of the Ohio Valley to the Mid-Atlantic by the time we get into early next week. But looking here, we are looking at the long-range weather forecast. We got another trough that's going to be digging down in our relentless active pattern, and that's going to be bringing cooler temperature anomalies across the western two-thirds of the country during that March 3rd through the 7th time frame, and will start to dampen this ridge farther south. So places like Florida will see above normal temperatures, but again, most of the southeast will still be above average during that time frame, and it'll likely be very active as well, especially across the west, the northern plains here through the Midwest, and then especially into the Ohio Valley and Northeast during that March 3rd through the 7th time frame, with a parade of storms that do continue to move through from west to east. You do see by next weekend, during that March 3rd through the 5th time frame, we are actually seeing some colder temperatures moving southward towards the Midwest here, the Ohio Valley into the Northeast, and any storm we get will probably produce more wintry precipitation, whether it's snow, sleet, freezing rain. We'll probably see much more of that as that southern stream storm track does take shape. In fact, the GEFS ensemble data is actually showing a fairly substantial snowstorm during that March 3rd through the 7th time frame, during that first full week of March, somewhere across the Missouri Valley, the Ohio Valley, and the Northeast. And even the Canadian ensemble guidance is actually fairly similar to that here, maybe just a little farther north. So this is very interesting getting in towards that first week in March, and we'll be tracking it. The overall storm track during that time frame from the 3rd to the 7th does look like this. A low pressure system will be developing across the central Rockies in the Front Range, and then drop south and east into the panhandle of Texas, and then take that left-hand turn, what we call a Texas hook type of low pressure systems, and then they develop farther to the east across the Ohio river valleys through the Mid-Atlantic here. That sets up the heavier snow line farther to the south here as well, including places that haven't seen a lot of snow this year across the Ohio Valley, the Mid-Atlantic, and then farther west southwestward in towards the Central Plains, but also would pull in a lot of moisture for heavy rain and severe weather again from East Texas through the Gulf Coast states and even the Carolinas and North Florida during that time frame. So we'll keep an eye on this here. We'll be tracking it here on Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage for updates as we get closer. But now we got to talk about the sudden stratospheric warming event, because this did occur just a couple of weeks ago, and now we're going to start to see the effects of this as it reaches down into the lower latitudes here. We did see that occur in the stratosphere. That's the layer of the atmosphere above us, but now we live in the troposphere. So now all that cold air is going to be dropping from the mid latitudes down into the lower latitudes where we live in the troposphere. And you can see that reflected on the week 2 of March. As we get into the second week of March, we're going to see a lot of this cold air dropping down from western Canada into the western two-thirds of the country, and that could actually sweep farther east across most of the lower 48 here. So we are going to be talking about much colder times as we get into the second week in March, which actually could in turn us more wintry with an active storm track, more snow and freezing rain and sleet events rather than rain and severe weather towards that time frame. So the weather forecast recap: a significant severe weather outbreak today and tonight. Be on high alert if you live in the central southern plains and then the Ohio Valley as we head into Monday. An ice storm and snowstorm with some significant ice and snow amounts across the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast these next couple of days. And then another big storm next week with more rain, snow, and severe weather across the country. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I definitely appreciate it. If you guys liked the video, press the thumbs up down below. Leave any comments. comments, questions, and concerns below. I'll get to those later on today. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're new, and hit the notification bell to get all of my daily weather forecast updates on this channel. I will be going live later on today, guys. Turn the notifications on by hitting the notification bell, especially. That's that bell icon down below the video. I will be going live for that significant severe weather outbreak unfolding across the central and southern plains later on today. So look for that, guys, and I will see you guys later on.